Halloween night. When the streets go quiet and the real horrors come out. These are 3 true stories of people who learned the hard way. Some things don't end when the night does.
It was the first Halloween I'd spent completely alone. I was 27, had just moved into a small rental house outside of town, and didn't know a single neighbor yet. My girlfriend had gone to visit her parents for the weekend, and most of my friends were either working or out at parties. I didn't really mind being alone, and I wasn't a big Halloween guy anyway. I just wanted to relax, order food, and binge-watch some movies. I remember it was cold that night. The wind had that sharp bite that tells you November is already peeking around the corner. Leaves scraped along the street outside like tiny footsteps. The neighborhood itself was quiet. The kind of suburban stillness where every sound feels louder than it should. Around 7 p.m., I turned off the porch light after the last few trick-or-treaters had come by. I didn't have much candy left, and I wanted to settle in. I made a frozen pizza, cracked open a beer, and started watching The Thing. About halfway through the movie, I thought I heard a soft knock at the door. It wasn't loud, just a single, hesitant tap. I muted the TV and listened. Silence. Then, after maybe 10 seconds and another knock, slightly louder this time, I sighed, assuming it was one last trick-or-treater who hadn't noticed the porch light was off. I got up, grabbed the bowl with the last few candies, and opened the door. But no one was there. The street was empty. The houses across the road were mostly dark. The only movement was a single jack-o'-lantern flickering on my neighbor's porch. I looked left, right, nothing. No kids running away, no giggling, no sound at all. I shrugged and went back inside, locking the door behind me. Weird, but not unheard of. Maybe some teenager thought it'd be funny to ding-dong ditch. The movie went on and I forgot about it. But around 8:30 I heard it again. Knock. Knock. This time, it was slower, heavier, more deliberate. It wasn't the quick, playful tap of a kid. It was 3 firm knocks, each spaced perfectly apart. I paused the movie again, now feeling a chill crawl up my neck. I walked quietly to the window and pulled back the curtain just a little. The porch was empty again, but something caught my eye. On the far edge of the driveway, where the streetlight barely reached, stood a shape. Someone, tall, unmoving, just standing on the sidewalk. I couldn't make out much detail from that distance, but it looked like they were wearing something bulky, maybe a hoodie or a jacket. Their head was tilted slightly toward my house. I froze. They didn't move, didn't wave, didn't walk away. Just stood there. After maybe 15 seconds, I let the curtain fall back into place and stepped away from the window. Probably just some drunk guy, I told myself. Or some older kid trying to scare people. Still, it didn't sit right with me. I double-checked the locks, door, windows, backslider, all secure. For the next hour, things went quiet again. No knocks, no movement outside. I started to think maybe whoever it was had just been passing through, but around 9:45, while scrolling on my phone, I heard something else. Tap, tap, tap. This time it wasn't the front door. It was coming from the kitchen window. I froze. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The kitchen window faced the side yard, the dark stretch between my house and the neighbor's fence. No one had any reason to be there. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and clicked it on. My hands were trembling as I crept toward the kitchen. When I reached the window, I waited, listening. The only sound was the fridge humming. I slowly pulled the curtain aside and shined the light outside. No one. The small patch of grass, the wooden fence gang all empty. But then I noticed something on the glass. Smudges, fingerprints. Long, streaky ones, as if someone had pressed their hand against the window and dragged it downward. That was it for me. I called the police. They said they'd send a patrol car through the area, but unless someone was actively trying to break in, there wasn't much they could do. I felt ridiculous describing it. There's someone knocking on my windows. But the dispatcher said they'd make a note of it and have someone check. For a while, I just sat there with every light on in the house, listening. The sound of the wind outside felt louder now, like whispering. Every creak of the house made me jump. I was sitting on the couch, gripping the flashlight like a weapon, when I saw it. A shadow moved past the front window. I turned off the TV, holding my breath. The shape moved slowly, a tall figure gliding past the curtain. Then, silence again. I crawled to the side window and peeked through the blinds just enough to see. Outside. He was standing in my driveway. Closer this time. Under the faint orange glow of the streetlight, I could finally make out his face. Or rather, the mask. It wasn't some horror movie mask. Nothing flashy or gory. It was a cheap, plain white mask. The kind you'd find at a dollar store. Completely blank except for 2 eye holes. He was just standing there, staring at my house. My phone was still in my hand from earlier, so I hit redial and told the dispatcher the guy was back, described him as best I could. She told me officers were on their way and to stay inside. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Still no sirens. The man hadn't moved. He just stood there facing the house. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and pointed, directly at me. He must have seen me through the curtain. I dropped to the floor immediately and crawled backward into the hallway. I could barely breathe. That's when the knocking started again. Not at the front door this time. It came from the back sliding glass door, 3 loud, heavy bangs that rattled the frame. I grabbed a kitchen knife and crouched behind the counter, shaking. The knocks came again, harder, faster, then stopped. For maybe a full minute, I didn't hear anything. Then, faintly, the sound of footsteps moving around the side of the house. I wanted to run, but every door and window felt like a trap. Finally, headlights washed over the living room wall. Police. I ran to the window and saw a patrol car pulling up. 2 officers got out, flashlights sweeping across the yard. By the time they circled the house, the man was gone. They found footprints in the mud near the back door, large ones, and the same hand smudges on the glass. They walked up and down the street, checked yards, even drove around the block. Nothing. One of the officers told me they'd keep an eye on the area for the rest of the night. They suggested I install a camera, and maybe motion lights. Then they left. The house was silent again. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every rustle of leaves outside felt like he was back. By morning, the world felt normal again. Sunlight pouring in, birds chirping, everything ordinary. For a moment, I wondered if it had all just been some sick prank. But when I stepped outside to grab the paper, I noticed something on the porch. A small plastic pumpkin. One of those cheap trick-or-treat buckets. Inside it was a piece of folded paper. I opened it slowly. In red marker, written in shaky letters, were 4 words. "Thanks for opening up." I called the police again. They came, took the note, and dusted the bucket for prints. Nothing. No leads. They said it was probably a Halloween prank by some teenagers with too much time. But I knew better. The guy wasn't playing around. That knock wasn't random. He'd been watching, waiting for me to open that door. A few weeks later, I bought a new doorbell camera and motion lights like the officer suggested. I moved out 3 months after that. I still can't watch horror movies alone, not because of what's in them, but because of the silence they leave behind when you hit. Pause. And sometimes on cold nights when the wind scrapes the leaves along the pavement, I swear I can still hear it. Knock, knock, knock. Halloween night always felt different in small towns. Something about the empty streets, the dim porch lights, and the smell of cold air after the last trick-or-treaters went home made everything feel still. That night, I was driving home from a small Halloween get-together my friend Aaron had hosted. Nothing crazy, just a few of us from work, cheap beer, bad horror movies, and a bowl of candy that only kids from his block cared about. By the time I left, it was almost midnight. Ashfield was a small town surrounded by long stretches of back roads that twisted through patches of woods and farmland. It was one of those areas where if you missed a turn, you could drive 20 minutes without seeing another light. I wasn't drunk, just tired. The streets were deserted. The only sound was the steady hum of my tires against the asphalt. I rolled down my window for a bit of fresh air and the cold wind stung my face. The road home should have taken about 30 minutes, but I decided to take a detour through the back roads. The GPS showed it as a shorter route, and besides, I liked driving at night. It was peaceful. That peace didn't last long. About 10 minutes in, I noticed a car behind me. Old, maybe a 90s model. Headlights a bit dimmer than mine. At first, I didn't think much of it, until I realized how close they were following. I checked the mirror again. Still there. Maybe 10 feet behind me, hugging my bumper. I tapped my brakes lightly to signal them to back off. They didn't. Instead, their headlights flashed, twice. I frowned. Maybe they were just trying to pass. I slowed down slightly, moved toward the side of the road, but the car didn't overtake me. It just stayed behind me. Same speed, same distance. My stomach tightened. After another mile, I turned onto a smaller road, the kind without streetlights, just narrow asphalt and thick trees on both sides. The other car followed. Okay, I muttered. That's not a coincidence. The longer I drove, the darker it got. My headlights illuminated only about 20 feet ahead, and beyond that, pitch blackness. The trees leaned in, branches arching, overhead like claws. The car behind me stayed locked in the same distance, its headlights glowing through my rear window. I couldn't see the driver. I turned on the radio, but it was all static. My phone showed 1 bar of signal, enough to maybe call someone, but I didn't want to sound paranoid to 911 unless I was sure. After another few minutes, I spotted a small dirt road branching off to the right, the kind that led to an old farmhouse or a dead-end trail. I took it. The other car drove past. I exhaled hard, my heart thumping. Maybe it really was nothing. Just someone heading the same way. I waited about 30 seconds before pulling back onto the main road. The highway sign ahead said I was only 10 miles from home. I was just starting to calm down when I saw it again. The same car parked on the side of the road ahead. No headlights this time. Just sitting there in the dark. As I got closer, I could make out the shape. Old sedan, dented hood, 1 headlight cracked. And then, just as my headlights swept across it, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He didn't wave, didn't move toward the car, just stood there facing the road. His face was hidden by the shadow, but I could see he was wearing something dark, maybe a hoodie or coat. As I passed him, he turned, slowly, and stared at me. I didn't even look back, I just pressed harder on the gas. After that, I didn't see his car again. No headlights behind me, no movement in the mirror. But that sense of being watched, it lingered. When I finally pulled into my driveway, my hands were shaking. I double-checked the locks, turned on every light, and laughed nervously at myself. Maybe I was overreacting. I made myself a cup of coffee, scrolled through my phone, and tried to unwind. Then, I heard something, a soft metallic clink outside. I froze, listening. Another sound followed, the unmistakable click of a car door, shutting. I walked slowly toward the window and peeked through the blinds. A car was parked across the street, same shape, same cracked headlight. My heart started pounding again. No one was inside. The street was empty. I called the local police, told them someone had followed me home from the back roads and was now parked near my house. The dispatcher said they'd send a patrol car to check it out. 10 minutes later, I saw the cruiser lights flashing outside. An officer got out, checked the vehicle, then came up to my porch. "There's no one in it," he said. "It's empty. Engine's still warm, though." He ran the plates, came back registered to someone named Dean Marshall, addressed 2 towns over. The officer said they'd try to contact the owner and to call again if I saw anything else suspicious. After he left, I sat by the window, watching the empty car for almost an hour. Nobody returned to it. Finally, sometime around 2 a.m., I went to bed. I woke up the next morning to sunlight pouring through the blinds. The car was gone. For a while, I convinced myself it was over. Maybe the guy was just lost, drunk, or confused. I went about my weekend like nothing had happened. But 2 nights later, something woke me up. A sound, faint, rhythmic, like crunch, crunch, crunch of footsteps on gravel. I sat up, heart pounding, listening. It was coming from outside, from the driveway. I grabbed my phone and crept to the window. My car was parked right below, and there, standing beside it, was a man. He was crouched near my driver's side door, flashlight in hand. He wasn't wearing a uniform or badge, just a dark hoodie and gloves. For a moment I was frozen. Then, I snapped a quick photo through the blinds and called 911 again. The dispatcher recognized my address immediately. I told her the man was outside near my car. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. Again. But they found something he'd left behind, a folded piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. It read, "You shouldn't have turned down that road." The cops took it seriously after that. They said the name Dean Marshall belonged to a man who had a long record: trespassing, stalking, harassment. He'd been reported several times for following people on rural roads, usually women, but he'd never been caught doing anything violent. They kept patrols around my neighborhood for a week, then just like that it stopped. No sightings, no parked car, nothing. I thought it was over. Until Halloween came again, exactly 1 year later. I wasn't planning to go anywhere that night. I stayed home, lights off, just waiting for the night to end. Around 11 p.m., I heard tires on gravel. Outside, I went to the window. A car was parked across the street, same model, same dented hood, but this time the headlights were off. And as I stood there watching, a faint knock came from my front door. 3 slow knocks. Just like the year before. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Another 3 knocks. Louder this time. Then, silence. I finally grabbed my phone, called 911 again, whispering what was happening. They told me to stay inside. Officers were already on their way, but before they arrived I heard something else, the low rumble of an engine starting. I looked outside again just in time to see the old sedan pulling away into the darkness, the Seer. Officers searched the area for an hour. Nothing. But the next morning I found something taped to my mailbox. A small piece of paper folded 3 times. Inside, written in the same jagged handwriting as before, it said, "Still driving alone?" I moved 2 months later, changed jobs, sold my car. I never drove the back roads again. Every Halloween, no matter where I am, I leave before dark, because somewhere out there's a man with a cracked headlight and a reason to remember me, and I don't ever want to give him a shortcut back. I've lived in small towns my whole life, but nothing ever felt quite like Birch Hollow. It was one of those places that looks peaceful on the outside, quiet, tree-lined streets, cozy houses with old porches, but always felt like it was hiding something. I'd only been there a few months when this happened. It was Halloween night last year and I was doing deliveries for a local food service app. It wasn't my usual gig. I was between jobs trying to pay rent and the app offered surge pay for late night hours. The town wasn't big, but the houses were spread out enough that half my night was just driving through woods and dark back roads. Around 10:45 p.m., I got a delivery request for an address on Birch Hollow Road, a part of town I didn't recognize. The note said, "Please leave food on porch, don't ring doorbell, cash tip under doormat." Weird request, but not uncommon, especially on Halloween. The order was 2 things, a large pepperoni pizza and a 2-liter of cola. Paid in advance. When I punched the address into GPS, it showed a route through the outskirts, winding forest roads, no streetlights. The house was about 15 minutes away. The first half of the drive was fine. Occasional porch lights, kids still trick-or-treating in small groups, someone blasting Thriller down the street. But once I passed the town limits, the road got narrower and darker. Birch Hollow Road barely looked like a road. It was cracked asphalt swallowed by trees, no shoulders, just blackness on both sides. The only light came from my headlights. After about 5 minutes, the GPS told me the house was ahead on the left. I slowed down, scanning for a mailbox or address sign, but there was nothing. No house, no driveway, just trees. I went another 100 yards, then the GPS said, You've arrived. But there was still nothing. I turned around, driving slower. This time. Then I saw it. A narrow dirt driveway almost hidden by overgrown branches, with a rusted mailbox leaning at an angle. The number was faint, but I could make it out. 412 Birch Hollow Road. I pulled in slowly. The driveway was long, maybe a quarter-mile and rough, filled with potholes. As my headlights moved forward, a small shape appeared ahead. A house. It was an old two-story place with faded blue paint and one porch light flickering. No cars in the driveway. No movement inside. But the porch light was on. That was something. Parked, grabbed the pizza and soda, and walked up the path. The air was dead silent, not even crickets. When I reached the porch, I noticed something odd. There was a doormat, but no cash under it. I leaned down, lifted the corner, and nothing. Then I saw movement in one of the upstairs windows. A shadow. Brief, crossing from one side to the other. I froze. "Hello?" I called softly. "Delivery. For, 412? No response. The light upstairs flickered like someone had walked past a lamp. I set the pizza box on the porch table and stepped back. Maybe they were shy or just didn't want to open the door, but something about the silence was heavy. Too heavy. That's when I heard it. A faint click behind me. I turned and saw that my car's headlights had turned off. The engine wasn't running. Keys were still in my pocket. But the lights had definitely been on a second ago. I walked toward the car slowly, scanning the woods. Then another sound, a creak from the porch behind me. When I turned back, the pizza box was gone. The table was empty. No footsteps, no movement. Just gone. My heart was thudding hard. I backed away toward the car, scanning the shadows, trying to convince myself it was some prank. Maybe someone grabbed it fast and went inside. I reached for my door handle. Locked. That made no sense. I never locked my car during short drop-offs. I hit the key fob. Nothing. Dead battery? I looked down at my phone to call support, but it was showing no service. Of course. I stood there for a full minute trying to decide what to do. The woods were silent. The air had that heavy stillness that makes your skin feel too tight. Then from behind me came a soft sound. Shuffle. Scrape. Shuffle. Like someone walking barefoot on gravel. I turned around fast, shining my phone's flashlight toward the porch. No one there. But then I noticed something in the light. A set of bare footprints on the dusty boards, leading from the porch steps to the table, and stopping right where the pizza box had been. The prints were fresh and small, maybe a woman's or a teenager's. And then I heard breathing, slow, heavy breathing, from somewhere to my left. I swung the light toward the woods and caught a flash of movement, someone ducking behind a tree. "Hey," I yelled, backing toward the car. "This isn't funny." No response, just that quiet breathing again, closer this time. I jumped into the car and tried the ignition. Nothing. Dead. That's when I noticed something else. All my doors were unlocked again. Someone had been inside. I scrambled out, grabbed my flashlight, and started running down the driveway toward the main road. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Behind me, footsteps, fast, uneven, crunching through the gravel. I didn't look back. At the end of the driveway, the road came into view, empty, silent. I turned left and just kept running. After maybe 2 minutes, headlights appeared from the distance, a pickup truck heading my way. I waved my arms, shouting. The driver slowed down, rolled down his window. "You okay, buddy?" I must have looked insane, out of breath, pale, shaking. I told him what happened. The strange order, the shadow, the car dying, someone following me. He frowned. "Birch Hollow, huh? That place should have been empty. Old lady who owned it died years ago. Nobody's lived there since." I froze. "What?" "The house is still furnished." He shook his head. No power, no running water, been like that since 19. I turned around, looking back at the woods. The faint glow from the house was still visible through the trees, the flickering porch light. Then who the hell turned that on? I whispered. The man offered to drive me to the nearest gas station. I climbed in, still shaking. He was quiet for a few minutes, then said, "You're lucky you didn't go inside." When I asked why, he said, "Sheriff found squatters up there, last year. Couple of them were dangerous. One guy tried to break into a house down the road. They disappeared before he could arrest them." The police towed my car the next day. They said it looked like someone had cut the battery cables clean through. There were also fingerprints on all 4 door handles, but they didn't match anyone in the system. They checked the house too. No one inside. No pizza box either. But the front door was open, and just inside on the dusty floor was a single footprint. Bare, small, and fresh. I quit deliveries after that night. Got a new job in town, moved to an apartment near other people with streetlights and noise. But every Halloween since then, I still get this itch to check that road again, like something unfinished. This year, I finally drove out there in the daylight. The house was still standing, but the porch was half collapsed. Windows boarded. No light, no mailbox, just silence. I walked up to the steps, cautiously. That's when I saw it. A faded pizza box sitting on the porch railing, perfectly, centered, clean, like it had just been placed there, written across the top in red marker. "Thanks for coming back."